So, Dominic, I was looking at this, and I think we've been working together almost 10 years now.
10 years. That's
Yeah.
probably about right.
That's a long time. Holy cow.
Yeah, and now we're all here in Los Angeles.
That worked out.
Okay, so I'm really excited, and thank you for being here to do this with us. I had to ask you, because you were actually holding one of our first cases with you. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to say, from your veterinary medicine expertise, what did we bring to you? Like, did this help you? How did it help you on this case? What was unique about this case that you couldn't just handle in the normal fashion, that this maybe helped you with your approach?
What was particularly helpful to us was we were able to scan our sloth skull and then print it. And this is one of those things where the print enabled us to plan the procedures that we knew we were going to do. But not only that, it also helped us phase in the treatment. This animal was going to need some dental adjustments that were going to take place over time. And we were able to use this particular scan to kind of model up. And we compared his scan to another sloth scan, and we could see what the anatomy should be. Yeah. And that allowed us to think about how we were actually going to proceed. Because otherwise, you can't just go in and cut and hope everything's going to be okay. Right. This was perfect for us, because without that we would have probably taken 3 times as long to plan what we needed to do, and I don't think we had as much of a feeling of certainty that it would work. It's a luxury in my field. Very often we don't get to do that. The ability to model and plan ahead is usually just done in our heads. This, we were able to model it, but look at basically a VR version of his skull, and go in and do what we thought we could do, but do it virtually, before we actually did it on the patient. And for us, that was huge. I know it's done a lot when they train surgeons, and that surgeons do a lot of that now in human medicine. But a lot of that hasn't hit veterinary medicine on a standard everyday basis for us. So this was really pretty revolutionary, and it made a huge difference in the sloth's, basically ability to have normal dentition.
Oh, we're happy to be able to step in when we can. So we always love getting you guys' calls.
Now a lot of CGI is being used to animate people, creatures in television, movies. How is that different from what you guys are doing?
So when you go and see that big blockbuster movie, or you play that video game, where they get those 3D models is that they have an artist sitting there and they're creating that 3D model in the computer. What is a little bit different for what we do is actually we get our 3D data from a CT scan or MRI scan. We are getting that medical image data and being able to put it back together in the computer and create a 3D model. And from there, we really can do anything with it, whether it's 3D print something like you see here, or it's actually putting it into an augmented or virtual reality setup. And so the difference, again, between being able to do that and reconstruct that in the computer, or being able to use a scan for that model. And one of the things we did a few years ago, it was really exciting, is we had the opportunity to scan dinosaur bones. And then what you're able to do is take that model and put it back in a real world environment. And so you could look like you have a dinosaur walking around a normal environment. And that's how the movies do that, is being able to take these computer models and place them in whatever environment you want. And so we can do that too. And we see our models being used in operating rooms and being used for training, doctors of the future. So lots of opportunity. And again, lots of parallel between what medicine and the film industry do. So we just really learn a lot from the entertainment industry in that regard, so that we can hopefully translate that for patient care.
Okay, so you've worked across a number of different animal taxa, lots of different animal groups, but you're actually based at a human hospital. How are animal cases different from human cases, and how do you approach them?
One of the things, there's always an extra challenge whenever we're doing an animal case, because the anatomy is different. We all are related somewhere along the evolutionary tree, but some are more distant than others, and that always makes a difficult case. Like, for instance, sometimes we just have to learn the different anatomy as we go. It's the first time this animal's been scanned, or first time we've at least interacted with this animal. And so, for example, our first sea turtle case, we were not aware that the lungs were actually completely different from a mammal lung. Like, turtle lungs are cystic in nature. We did not know that. Turtle lungs look like a human with emphysema, and so we're like, this turtle needs a lung transplant. That's what's wrong with it. And they're like, no, that's actually normal. Like, oh, okay. So we have to learn a wide breadth of knowledge about these animals as we go. So that's always a challenge there.
What you guys do isn't a very common thing. How did you guys get into this career and this particular part of this field?
I was actually that nerdy kid growing up that loved computers. And I started like computer programming when I was 6 years old, and I just loved to see things on the screen. And so one of the things that actually got me excited was when I first saw like things moving, and my 5th grade teacher made us sit down and actually write letters to our future selves. And I said I wanted to do computers, and I wanted to do anatomy, and I wanted to somehow put bad guys in jail with that. And so my background is actually in forensics, so I think 5th grade me is okay. When I went to college, this wasn't even a field. This really wasn't something that you went to school for. Now that's changing a lot. So it's been kind of a gathering of different skill sets, computer, anatomy, and medicine. Creativity. I actually studied film in college as well, so kind of a blending of all of that together. And so it's been really fun to see like how this field has developed in the last even 10 years into what it is now. I would not have thought that, and I can assure you, little 5th grade me didn't think that this would happen.
Like Summer said, it wasn't really a field, so we kind of discovered. I had worked for an engineering firm, first a job out of college, and that kind of planted that seed. I thought, to be honest, that I was going to go into veterinary medicine. I learned that blood freaks me out, and I tend to get woozy and get like a vagal response and pass out. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's not my thing.
So virtual blood, not a problem.
No, virtual blood's fine. I can handle that. Another aspect is I've always been artistically inclined, so I'd always be like taking art classes and drawing and stuff like that. And so this is another avenue for this, so I can able to do like color and design and stuff like that as well. So that's always been a helpful avenue for that skill set I was able to tap into.
So you've combined medicine, science, art, film, anatomy, all the things that people like individually, but you've made it one field.
That's what our hope was.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important that we show that all of those things work together. I think it's when you see people mention STEM fields or STEAM fields even, we need to borrow from each other. Medicine often is an art form. And when I used to teach medical students, I would tell them, you've probably been told to like forget about video games and forget about all of that fun stuff you used to do. Now you're a serious medical student. And I would say this is not the time for that. You actually need that. Mm-hmm. You need those skill sets to be able to be creative and think differently about problems. And that's often what happens when we're working on your cases, because we have to have something new that no one has probably looked at or tried to do before, and that comes from digging deep into those difficult cases with some skill sets that maybe wouldn't be thought of initially.
It's actually very, very true, because like you end up like, okay, you have this problem, so you need to know the anatomy. Okay, but then we have to do the engineering to make sure whatever device we're going to use can actually be used for that. Is the material we're going to use going to be strong enough for that? Is it biocompatible for that? Can we do that? Also, if we're doing like a visualization aspect of it, does it look good? We all have to be able to tap into that and do those different things. And it kind of, you have to have a Swiss Army knife approach and toolbox. Like, okay, what are we doing? And every problem is tertiary related to each other, but they're all different and unique. And so you always have to, there's a different solution each time. And it just varies.
And here I thought veterinarians were the only MacGyvers left.
Oh, no.
I can vouch that you guys really are. I remember one time you showed me a tube for an airway of like a mouse versus an elephant.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you do stuff from like something like go from a 10 rack to a sloth to a kangaroo to a rhino, just like, and you just have to be able to do that. And the anatomy is different. Yeah. The size is clearly different. And we have a kid and an adult, and that's about it, and everywhere in between. So you're always an extra challenge every time we work with you.
In a good way.
In a good way. Very much.
That's why I love your cases.
No, yeah. They were a nice change of pace.
What the veterinary cases allow us to do is really get more creative. because there's sometimes things that we don't have the ability to do for our human patients. We have to stick within certain confines. But with these veterinary cases, we have such unique geometries, we have such unique clinical situations that it really makes us have to dig back and think, okay, how would I approach this? So maybe it's using a material that hasn't been used before for that purpose. If we can help in even the slightest way for when that next zoo calls with a different situation, you know, would that work here? We always want to help because it really does make a difference. And I think that's what sometimes people don't realize in the world that you guys work in.
We're really excited because we are planning on getting a CT scanner. And CT scanner is very much now part of the spectrum of care that we can offer zoo animals. I think it's going to make a huge difference for us.
Absolutely.
We're going to be able to scan everything, whether the animal's alive or actually is deceased. And a lot of that data is way more important than people can even think about. You know, if I go to the doctor and I have a CT scan of my wrist, for example, it has value. It has value mostly to me. It has value to, say, the physician who's going to treat me. If I scan, say, a confiscated animal that was injured or, you know, God forbid, you know, died as a result of being trafficked, that data now becomes, you know, useful to the legal case. It becomes useful because now we have more of that species, which probably is endangered and rare, their anatomy on file. You know, there's a hope that we're going to be able to build a database of anatomy of different species, and that will be useful not only medically, but probably also legally. Absolutely. So even though we're here talking about 3D printing, think of the ramifications of what's going to happen if we can expand this field even more. Right. So 3D imaging, 3D printing, you know, AI to perhaps reduce or minimize animal trafficking, animal confiscations, animal issues in the wild, and animal cases in zoos, and hopefully also, you know, veterinary medicine for our pets as well.
For me to hear the LA Zoo is doing that, I think that's just going to be amazing for the animals here that you have at your zoo. How many animals are you guys taking care of there?
Yeah, no, we LA Zoo has about 1,700 animals, a vast variety of different species. A very interesting collection, you know, and we very much dearly love every one of those animals. So it's so important for us at the LA Zoo. You know, we're a city-run zoo. We need the support of our community, and that includes the many different medical schools. So, you know, we're incredibly thrilled to have USC on board now. Knowing that you guys are there to have our backs is huge, you know, because the animals are only going to be able to thrive if we can give them the best care, and that is always our goal. But that includes, you know, working with the community, and that includes the academic community like USC, UCLA, and Kaiser. So we are so thankful to have you guys here for us.
Oh, no, it was actually one of the ways when I was interested in coming out here, knowing that you were here and your team, and having worked with you all these years, knowing how much you care for your animals. And you and I've seen you in action all these years, and that just shines through. So anytime that we can be on your team, it makes it so rewarding for us. So that definitely, that makes me excited to work with the LA Zoo and see what we might be able to do. It's so important, and it's such an important part for just even our planet to be able to keep things going. So it's just our little way of making our little hopeful help to what you guys, the amazing work that you all do.